The Deadpool-Wolverine rivalry, frenemyship, it's become an iconic relationship between the two characters. But where did it begin? Did their first meeting and battle, for they did indeed fight the first time they met, set the stage for things to come? I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and let's take a look at their first encounter and find out. Wolverine and Deadpool first met and fought in Wolverine number 88. This was from the year 1994, and the story was, it's Deadpool, folks. It was a play on a Looney Tunes-esque intro. It was written by Larry Hama, with pencils by Adam Kubert and Fabio Lagunio, inks Mark Farmer and Tim Townsend, colors Murray Javins, letters by Pat Bruso, who gets special props this issue, because things can get a little chaotic and you can always read what's happening and who's saying it. It sounds basic, but lettering is one of those things that can oftentimes go unsung unless it goes awry, but there's a lot of subtle details you can infuse that can really help things flow, and this issue does some of those things. The cover is one of the iconic ones. It doesn't get as overly homaged as some, although it does happen, but the original, it just stands out. It's by Adam Kubert and features Deadpool skewering Wolverine with the swords almost aligning with the V in Wolverine's title, all cast in shadow against these striking reds, against a contrasting blue background. Everything's coming together quite well. There's just something of the balance between the shadow and the colors. It's very compelling. They're doing / did a facsimile reprint of this issue time for the release of Deadpool and Wolverine or Deadpool 3. And there's a variant cover by David Yardin that reverses it. So it has Wolverine holding up Deadpool. And while it's cool, because of their different costumes, it alters the amount of red on the top and the bottom. And just that shift in balance of the reds and the black, it doesn't hit the same, at least in my opinion, but your miles may vary. Maybe you'll like this variant better. When they relaunched Deadpool series in 2024, they did a variant that took this original 88 cover from another angle, and it was in full color. That was pretty cool. And Wolverine 23 from 2022 had both Wolverine and Deadpool being skewered. None of them are quite the same as the original iconic cover, which is also attached to an important issue, or at least it's come to be important over time, and as such has been reprinted many times. You can find this in many a trade, Omni, collection. It's become a seminal issue. So with all that said, let's take a look at it. So first, a little bit of context for Wolverine and some of the characters involved, because Wolverine is just gonna start fighting Deadpool pretty much right away. Logan is in San Francisco, which he calls Frisco, which for 2 seconds made me think he was in Texas, but no, he's in San Fran. He's looking for Kane, checking up on him. This is the behest of James Hudson. This Kane is Garrison Kane, who while he was initially a member of the Six Pack under Cable, and yes, their team was named after a 6-pack of beer, he lost his arms and legs until he was taken and turned into a cyborg by Department K as a part of the second Weapon X program, the same Weapon X Wade Wilson was part of. Although what Wave and Deadpool's history has changed and evolved over time, it's gotten quite complicated, but for this period, that would be how they would know each other. Also, in the Marvel Universe, Kansas has these funds for all these secret organizations. Kane has run off with Copycat, aka Vanessa Carlyle, who's Deadpool's ex, and there's a lot of complicated feelings between the two of them. This complicated relationship is going to factor into this issue. It's going to have a decent impact even though it stays in the background. Wolverine is already peeling, or rather ripping off his shirt on the first page because he saw the door was splintered. He knows it's going to get rough. He needs to be ready for action. Just pre-tear the clothes, and right away Deadpool's on him, literally and figuratively. Nobody home but us cold-blooded mercenary assassins. You wouldn't happen to know where old Shiny Arms went off to with my ex-squeeze Vanessa, would you? I'd do you a big solid and put you out of your interminable suffering. This is a great 2-page spread. I'm not sure what Deadpool was doing before he launched into this impossible pose, but it marries nicely with his Looney Tunes intro happening in the corner. It helps it feel less over the top because it's equating him with a cartoon character. Also, this angle makes Wolverine have to get real low, so he looks extra animalistic and feral. We're still in the Bone Claws era, courtesy of Magneto, who had ripped the adamantium or peeled it off. It had come off of Wolverine in X-Men 25. It was very painful to look at. He gets the adamantium back in Wolverine 145 in 1999, so there's a ways to go yet with these bones. But they're still getting the job done of nearly gutting Deadpool. Deadpool is very annoying here, and it's purposeful. His talk and banter and lines are meant to be comedic, yes, but they're also meant to be strategic. They're distracting. The little additional yellow layer around his bubbles is a nice subtle visual cueing to the fact that he's probably a little, or rather more than a little, obnoxious. You can see it visually around his speech. This is also before some of the things that would become staples about Deadpool have fully asserted themselves. He's not as unstable at the moment. That's gonna come as Deadpool evolves as a character, and they're going to write how and why he becomes more and more unstable into the canon at various points. This Deadpool is a bit more balanced, so you're seeing the evolution of before it just became something that he just did. It's interesting to see the evolution of Deadpool as a character. This Deadpool is a bit more hints of how manipulative and astute he can be. Deadpool's very good at observing people and understanding how they work, and they don't always pull that out of the character as much as they could. Him and Wolverine don't fight for long in the grand scheme of things in the issue. They get 6 pages at the start, and they're gonna have a little bit at the end, but this opening fight is the crux of their encounter together. It does set the stage, it does open the issue, but it's worth noting because some, when they hear about this being their first fight and see how how their relationship evolved. They may assume that they're gonna get a whole issue of fighting, but it's not like that. It doesn't take up the full book. It's more like when Wolverine fought the Hulk. It's a small moment, but the significance has ballooned over time. And even though it's small, doesn't mean it's not cool. It's also an amusing fight because they're carrying on a coherent, almost casual conversation the entire way through. Aw, didn't mean old Deadpool make little bitty Wolverine wisdoms all upset. Wait till I slice into your face. That ought to take the sunshine out of your day and twist your mad dial up to 10. What's your beef with Kane anyway? Nobody wants the kid dead bad enough to pay you to ice him. How much does Deadpool charge? Deadpool does indeed skewer Wolverine and also notices a poster he missed, leaving with an exit stage left joke, which leads to the reveal that Vanessa and Kane have tried to start their lives over as actors in a theater group. It's not the best profession for laying low. Did you know that I have a mutant healing factor? Works just fine too, unlike some others I heard about. You're gonna need it, bub, cause you just maxed out my tolerance level. Getting skewered is an actual problem for Wolverine at this point because his healing factor is just starting to kick back in properly after going into overdrive after the whole skeleton removal or layer of skeleton removal. It wasn't good, it was a lot. So he's in pretty bad shape for a bit. Thankfully there's an on-brand kimono in this apartment for him to wear and wrap around himself and have people make some jokes about later. It's gonna serve multiple purposes. Deadpool's already made it to the theater so we can have some dramatic intercutting between Wolverine trying to get there and the start of their fight. The theater is the Grand Guignol, which was originally a theater in France in the Pigalle district and specialized in over-the-top horror, even though at the time it was called naturalistic. There was a focus on the brutalism of the everyday. The name has now come to encompass more the genre than a location, but that's why Kane is holding a copy of Vanessa's head as a prop. These plays were meant to be gory and titillate the senses by exploring the aforementioned brutality. You also do get a good joke of where his acting gets better when he actually sees Deadpool, because there's a running thing that he's actually not that good. Who'd you think it was, Kane? Siskel and Ebert? I hope your fighting skills have deteriorated to the level of your acting. I hope. Because I don't want too much hassle of making sliced ham out of you. That's actually a very clever joke, because ham is slang for over-the-top acting, or bad acting. It had layers. A lot of these Deadpool jokes are a little subtle. You have your usual references to pop culture, but then there are some that you gotta stop and think about and appreciate on a different level. Acting doesn't come easy to me, but I was born to fight. That's a very solid intro line into a fight, and clearly we need to get Kane into some kind of action beef or budget thing. He's in the wrong genre. Deadpool is not impressed by any of this. He's more focused on the fact that Garrison is Miss Cecilio girl, and goes on about how Vanessa was his girl, which activates her don't call me babe senses. We're going in for a girl power moment. You've got a lot of gall calling me your girl. I don't even let Garrison use those possessive pronouns, and he's your significant other, among other things. I have an imagination, I know what that means. There's an amusing juxtaposition here with the messaging of the text against the bad girl sensibilities of the art. Now, it does take Wolverine a while to get there because he has to catch a cab. There's an interlude with that. They cut back, and then they cut back to the cab again. So in our first cab interlude, we get some banter between him and the cabbie about acting, thespians, his kimono, but it's there to establish that he's also healing slowly, so he's gonna be ready for the next part of the fight. Then we cut back, and we go back to the cab, and things go off the rails. The brakes of the cab just go out. We may be off by a few blocks before I can coax the baby to a stop through deft maneuvering and skillful application of the emergency brake. Or, you may just slam into something in a few feet if there's a red or a stop sign or a pedestrian. This is cause for more concern, especially down a San Francisco hill. But you know what? Wolverine's gone. I'm out of here. You want your fare? Come by the theater. How hard can it be to skateboard? It's the 90s. Little kids do it. I know the sound effect says scree, like it's metal screeching, but in my head I'm just saying wee. And so Wolverine takes the cab door and skates it down to the theater. What a time. Will you see this technique? I copped it off of a chef at a Japanese steakhouse. Why don't you try it on someone who isn't down, like me? No thanks. I've been saving this one just for you, Nessa Cakes. Kick to the face. Aw, Vanessa fall down. Go boom. Here is where we get what I think personally is the best Deadpool moment of the story, depending upon how you read into it. And it is there to be read into, they just don't foreground it. He puts Kane into a typical, you have to decide dilemma. What's more important, your girl or your life? So he asks him to choose between a sword coming at his own head and one that Deadpool has aimed at Vanessa's heart. This very dramatic moment is hilariously interrupted by Wolverine bursting through, still on the makeshift cab door skateboard. He manages to instantly assess the situation and goes for Vanessa. And this is a key moment, and it can get a bit lost in the confusion of everything. It's just that the scene is hectic, not that you can't follow it, but the important thing is that Kane went to save himself first. He blocked the sword coming for his head. They don't drive it home in terms of Deadpool, although they'll have Vanessa talk about it later. He's undermined their relationship because now he's introduced that seed of, look, he didn't save you first. It's just incredibly manipulative and messy. Deadpool does nope out rather than staying and fight all three of them. My mutant healing factor is working fine, boy. Too bad for you, huh? Got nothing left to say, big mouth. Just one word. Grenade! The dude sure knows how to go out with a bang. All the jokes. This issue's got jokes. Deadpool pieces out, and part of how you can tell that A, this is a filler issue for Wolverine, but also that he just wanted to mess with them, is that they go back to the same apartment. I would move. There's a whole thing about how they clean it up and Wolverine stays the night. No, it's time to move. Wolverine gets a chance to talk about what he's going through this issue, which is his struggles and wandering. And then we get a close off with him and Copycat, because obviously this story is about Wolverine. It's not really about Vanessa or Kane or Deadpool in the long run. This is a bit of a breather for Wolverine, and we had all of these other things happening as we lead into Wolverine's next big arc. It is also quite the detour from the characterization of Deadpool having let Vanessa go at the end of the circle chase, where it was a bittersweet moment, but chill, and she even left with Kane. But that was then, and this is a Wolverine filler issue. Still, I can see this rankling some. It may feel like a step backward for Deadpool. He blocked the sword that was aimed at his own head. That's right, he did the right thing. Because if he was dead, he wouldn't be able to help you at all. He could have stopped the sword that was aimed at you, but the other one would have split his skull. Then who was gonna stop Deadpool from walking over and acing you? Wait, Deadpool had to walk over? He wasn't directly beside her with it right there at the heart position? Now, see, Wolverine, you're making it worse. Because now you've introduced the question of would Deadpool have actually stabbed her? Even so, she has the ability to copy his healing factor, which he's already done and used to save herself. So would he be doing that knowing that she could do that? Now you've just made it worse. You've introduced a whole bunch of other things for her to think about, and it's not making it better for Kane. I mean, this isn't gonna be why they break up, but you could point to this as a wedge moment. But you were there. Yeah, but what if I had caught a cab with good brakes? And that there is why the brakes went out, so we could have this joke. Sitcom laugh at the end. He bikes off into the sunset. Next issue, he's gonna have to start an arc that'll lead to him fighting Sabretooth. This is gonna haunt her. She's bothered, you can see it. I'm probably reading way too much into that and focusing on it too much. We're supposed to be paying attention to Wolverine fighting Deadpool. As far as first encounters and fights go, this is a fun one. But just looking at this on its own, it doesn't seem like the most grandiose of battles. But with everything that came after, coming and looking back at it in retrospect, this is a fun beginning, and it is a good solid filler issue. And fans seem to like the pairing. It's not groundbreaking or revolutionary, but it's solid. It has some decent banter, some odd moments that are pretty funny, and some interesting, if not foregrounded, character moments that you can really work with or think about. It's a nice break for Logan and Cannon too, because as mentioned, he's heading into that Sabretooth fight. This is just a unique issue to look at now from a historic perspective in the comic book landscape. More so if you're examining the history of these characters together. As a moment for them individually, it's less of a touchstone. It's also a very 90s outing, so as with anything, everyone has their favorite eras, and if it's not one that grabs you, for example, some really have issues with the 90s era art style, there are some elements that may outweigh enjoyment for this issue. Also, if the humor doesn't land, and there are a lot of jokes in this issue, even though if it's not joke forward, but they are there. So if one isn't gelling with that, this may be more eye-rolling than fun. I found it entertaining. What about you? I like this level of sass on Deadpool. It's nice to revisit the more deadly, less manic Deadpool on occasion. Well, not more deadly, just more obviously deadly. There's just a little crackle of danger energy about this Deadpool. These two wouldn't meet again until the Deadpool Annual of 1995, and they don't talk about this. I mean, they fight so many people, although I would have to say that I would remember the fight where a person burst in on a cab door. Looked like he was gonna yell cowabunga or something. I'm glad he did. So that was Wolverine and Deadpool's first encounter / fight. What do you think? Had you read that issue? Do you think it's a good firm foundation for these two characters, a good starting point? Or do you think that that came later? Are you a fan of the dynamic between these two? What do you think is the coolest Wolverine and Deadpool moment? Share your thoughts down below, and while you're down there, please do all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Thanks so much for taking some time to spend discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.